All right, well, welcome everybody to the Globalize Your UCI experience, our info session about Study Abroad 101. So for some of those basics today. We'll start off with some introductions. My name is Ashley Arvanites, and I'm the lead advisor for inbound and custom programs. I am also a UC alum. I went to UC San Diego, and I received my bachelor's in international studies. I did an environmental studies minor. I had the opportunity to study abroad in Mexico, Egypt, Peru, and Italy. I studied abroad with faculty members in Peru, Mexico, and Egypt. Those were all in the summers after my first, second, and third year of university. And then my junior year, I spent abroad in Italy. That experience was so meaningful to me, and I was always really interested in learning what life was like in other parts of the world. So that took me to move abroad to Thailand and teach English there after graduation. And if I go back and think about some of my biggest concerns prior to my first study abroad trip, I think one of them was really not knowing anyone else on the program. I didn't know any of the other students that were going. I was going to a place I wasn't familiar with, but I really feel like study abroad does a great job of it takes you sometimes outside of your comfort zone, and you're in a new place, having new experiences, new exciting observations. And those are the kind of experiences where I feel like you're able to build really strong connections with individuals really quickly because you're all going through this together. So I think that even though that was something that I was concerned about, you immediately got it over it very quickly. And I, to this day, have very lifelong friends from these kind of experiences as well. I think another thing that I sort of felt as a student was FOMO. I was afraid of missing out. I was afraid that if I was gone, my friends were going to forget me, or I was going to be missing out on all these things on campus. And I think actually, it did quite the opposite. It continued to allow me to grow my network. I met other additional friends that were from all over the world, all over the country, and the opportunities that were happening at home still continued to happen when I came back. And there's so many different ways to stay in touch with social media and communication and Zoom that I was able to maintain those contacts with friends and those relationships, even while I was abroad, while having those experiences and, meeting even more people. So those are just some of my concerns that I want to hopefully address here. I'd like to also take this opportunity to introduce one of our peer advisors. Zoe, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, my name's Zoe. I'm a peer advisor at the Study Abroad Center. So what that means is I help out students who are interested in studying abroad and also share my experiences with them. So I studied abroad in England in my junior year, and I'm an art history major. So obviously studying abroad was a huge opportunity for me to get to see artworks and museums abroad. I definitely recommend it. I had an amazing time when I was studying abroad, and I'm still really close with a lot of the people I met over there.
Great. Thanks, Zoe. All right, so I think we're going to jump right into it. And if folks are comfortable, either unmuting themselves, or you also can use the chat to thinking about let's even back up even further. So what is study abroad? What does that mean to you when we say study abroad? So feel free to drop that in the chat. If you also want, you can raise your hand and you can unmute yourself, and we can have you just start a discussion. So when we say study abroad, like what does that mean to you? Getting perspective, right? That's a really great thing, right? It's an opportunity to see maybe your field or another part of the world from a different vantage point, a different viewpoint. Wonderful. Thank you, Daichi. Another one, an opportunity to immerse yourself in a different culture. Wonderful, right? It's an opportunity to study, right? Work towards your degree, get some academics, but also experience a new environment, right? Immersing yourself in a different culture, learning about what it's like, what's the lifestyle like, the values, the culture, the food. You get to explore different parts of the world. I think that the university setting provides a really unique opportunity where there's a lot of support from different offices on campus. There's scholarships, there's financial aid and funding that provide you an opportunity to go and live and study and work in another part of the world. Also gaining self-confidence and independence, right? You're navigating completely new systems. So you're going to learn about yourself. You're going to gain a lot of confidence and skills that are going to be helpful for you in the future, right? So when we say study abroad, it can include a variety of different opportunities. It could be taking courses towards your major or your graduation requirements or GEs. It could also even potentially be doing an internship abroad, researching abroad, service learning, volunteering, right? So there's a lot of things that go into it. Because they're so broad, that also allows us to even have even more benefits of participating in an education abroad program. And so some of those are going to be academic, some of those are going to be professional, and some of those are personal. So if we think about some of those academics, you can take, as I mentioned, courses towards your graduation requirements, right? You can be working towards your degree abroad. You may even have the opportunity to take courses not offered at UCI. Right? Maybe there's a specific subject, they don't have classes here at UCI, but they have it at another institution, and you can take courses that are more aligned with your individual goals and interests, and maybe even your career path that could potentially be helpful for you in the future. You also have the opportunity to learn from global leaders, so professors that are putting out really interesting research or are interested in a topic that you're also interested. You can go and meet them and learn from them in person. Studying abroad also provides the opportunity to engage in very active learning in a new setting, right? I feel like those kind of settings allow you to be like a sponge, similar to if you're new on campus, there's so many different activities, you're seeking them out, you're taking advantage of where you are. So it's a time not only, so, as Zoe mentioned, to engage with the actual material in person, right? To see what, instead of just reading about a certain place or how things have been done in a certain place, you actually get to experience it and live it and gain even more of that context, and how folks in your industry view the same kinds of problems that we may face here, in the US or different places around the globe. So that global perspectives can be really helpful as well. I saw that students also mentioned that you can create lifelong friendships, right? As I mentioned, these experiences bring people together. You grow, you find connections, you're doing new things, having new exciting adventures together. And you also can grow your global network. And this can be for personal things. This can also be for career. You make those kind of connections that may be helpful for informational interviews in the future. Or maybe you work with a faculty member who's going to write you a letter of recommendation in the future because they've seen you work in a new setting. They've seen your communication style. They've seen your ability to work on a team. They've seen your ability to problem solve and to adapt to a new environment and a new situation. And once again, some of those skills that I was just talking about, problem solving, multicultural communication skills, these are some of the top skills that students take away from study abroad. And it also aligns with the specific types of skills that employers are looking for in recent college graduates. So these are different opportunities for you to gain that type of skill and have something tangible to talk about in an interview, to include on your resume. So having those type of experiences increases your skill set and allows you to increase your employability and to expand your knowledge of possible career paths. So for me personally, I did an archaeological program in Peru, and I thought that maybe this was a course I was really interested. I liked the subject matter, but I didn't know what it was actually like to be an archaeologist. I learned a lot more about sort of the administrative part of it, the bureaucracy that's involved in doing archaeological digs in different countries around the world, and the need to focus on an individual culture in general for archaeology, and working out in the field for 8 to 10 hours a day digging in the dirt. It was a fabulous experience. We uncovered 13 mummies, and it was something I never thought I would have the opportunity to do in my life. But it also taught me that archaeology was not a field that I wanted to pursue. And I think that finding out sometimes what you don't want to do can be almost as equally as valuable as knowing exactly what you want, right? Being able to close certain doors, things that you're not interested in, that was a really enlightening experience for me, because I didn't have the same draw to do that type of work for a career as I did for something that was sort of more exploratory. So it's great for career paths, and then also that self-confidence and independence. You're navigating new systems, you're figuring things out on your own, you're doing it as a team, you're communicating with others, having new types of interactions. So those are just some of the general benefits that are associated with studying abroad. One thing that I also really like to mention as well is that there have been a number of studies done, and 90% of students that studied abroad get a job within 6 months of graduating, compared to only 49% of students who did not study abroad. So as you can see, these skills are things that employers are really looking for. And 73% of employers say that study abroad is a valuable item to have listed on your resume because you have developed so many of those crucial skills necessary to be successful in your career post-graduation. It's also, those kind of skills are also really attractive to grad schools if that's something that you're considering as well. So I think really the first step is to take some time to reflect. So what are your individual goals for study abroad? Do you want to take courses in English? Do you want to take them in another language? Do you want to earn credits towards your degree? Do you want to complete GEs? Are you trying to fulfill major requirements, minors? You want to do upper division electives, graduation requirements? Maybe there are courses not at UCI. Are you hoping to get work experience? Do you want to do an internship? Do you want to do research abroad, right? International research. Are you hoping to learn another language? Do you want to practice another language, right? Or do you want to actually have the opportunity to use it on site? Maybe you're interested in exploring your heritage or family roots and learning a little bit more in depth about and immersing yourself in that culture. Maybe another big concern for you may be the cost and the affordability. So if we think about that, that usually is a very large portion of what students, are taking into account. And that's really important to understand what is involved in the cost of it. And we'll go into a little bit more detail, but I want to paint a little bit of a picture. So if we think about London, London is a pretty expensive big city. So if we're comparing a year abroad in London to a month abroad in Thailand, which has a pretty reasonable cost of living, those costs are going to be wildly different. So there's not necessarily one answer on how much it's going to cost, but thinking about affordability and keeping that in mind as you're looking at what programs you may want to consider. So I touched on this a little bit, but there's a lot of different study abroad options and things that you can do. So there's academic type programs. There's internship programs. Some of those are for credit, some are non-credit. Some of those internships might be paid and some of them are unpaid. There's opportunities for research and service learning and engaging with the community. Another question we have to get is, where can I go? So the great answer to this is that we have programs all over the world. And so we're going to talk a little bit about different program types, but our office is here to help hopefully connect you with a program that is aligned with your individual goals or destinations of interest. And so these could be things that may be aligned with what you want to do for your career, or it could just be, a personal interest. I grew up studying Spanish, but for some reason I had a very strong draw to Italy, and I had always wanted to know what life was like in Italy. And so I studied abroad in Italy. So it really can be coming from that personal or sort of a career, professional, family. There's a lot of different reasons why students are interested in different locations. Another question we want to think about is when and for how long you want to go. We have programs in the summer, we have fall programs, those can be fall quarter, fall semester, we have winter quarter programs, spring programs, and also full year. We have programs that are everywhere from 2 weeks all the way to 4 weeks. Those are our more short-term programs. We have summer programs, quarter-long programs, semester, and year. And so, as I mentioned on the last slide, how much does it cost? It really varies on the destination, the duration, and what's included in the program. So some programs, all of your housing is included. Other programs, you're on your own to find housing. Some programs, all meals are included. Other ones, you can cook at home, those kinds of things. So similar to depending on where you live at UCI, those kind of costs are going to be different as well. All right, so finances and affordability. So the great thing about the programs that are offered is that financial aid goes with you and is adjusted to the total cost of your program. So if you are applying to one of our eligible programs and you are a financial aid recipient, if the place you're going to is more expensive than studying at UCI, your aid package will rise to meet that level of funding necessary for you to be able to participate. There are a lot of different scholarships specifically for study abroad. So I always recommend students looking into that. Some scholarships are going to be merit-based. Some of them are open to students that show financial need, but there's also a lot of different scholarships available to anyone who's interested in applying. So some of the programs actually are even going to cost the same or less as attending UCI, right? Irvine is not necessarily the cheapest place in the world to live. So when you are looking at the overall costs of programs, I really encourage you to keep in mind how much it costs for you to attend school here at UCI. So thinking about it. So we have an example here for 1 year on campus at UCI this is from a previous year, but 33 weeks at UCI is about $34,000. Right? If you, for example, were to go to Korea for a year, it would only cost you $28,000. So in theory, you could go abroad, work towards your degree, and even save money in the long run. There's also sort of combinations. You can see the second example, if you go for UCI's fall quarter, if you stay here for fall quarter and then you go abroad for the spring semester, you could even save additional funds. One thing I do want to mention is that in general, there is more financial aid and scholarships available for programs during the year. That does not mean that there are no scholarships in the summer, but there are more available during the academic year. Zoe, would you want to give any comments about your experience with finances and scholarship?
Absolutely. I definitely found it was true that in the case of my program, studying abroad was actually cheaper than spending a quarter at UCI, mainly because of the UCI area housing costs, which I'm sure we're all familiar with. But I am also a financial aid student, so I took my financial aid with me on the program, and it covered so much of the fees and my housing costs. So it was extremely helpful to me. And I also received a couple scholarships.
Oh no, is Zoe frozen for anyone else, or is it my internet? Okay, Zoe's frozen. We will come back to her as soon as she gets back. I also want to hear a little bit more about her experience with the academics. So when she gets back, are you back? Oh, I can't hear you now for some reason.
It's the BBC Norte Wi-Fi. Can you hear me now? Is this okay?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So I'm not sure where I left off when it cut out, but I'll just talk about, thank you for empathizing with me guys on the Wi-Fi. But yeah, for scholarships, I applied to a few scholarships and I ended up getting 2, and those helped me to cover some additional travel costs. So while financial aid was helping me to cover tuition and housing and even some groceries, the scholarships really helped me to be able to have all these amazing experiences without having the anxieties with financial issues.
Wonderful. Thanks, Zoe. All right. So these are just some options. If you have visited or when you visit our study abroad website, they're organized into 4 different program options. And so UCEAP is probably our most popular and most common program that UCI students are participating on. And these are UC system-wide programs available to all UC students at all UC campuses. So they have over 200 different programs in 50 different countries. They have everything from language programs, internship programs, research programs. Some options are going to be sort of more of that direct enroll. You're becoming a student at another university. You're registering for classes as you would here at UCI, could be in a variety of different departments. They also have programs that are only exclusively for UC students, but are taught abroad. So you won't be interacting with students from the other home university, but you're just going to be enrolling in classes with UCI students. So there's a lot of different options available for UCI or UCEAP programs. So UCI programs, these are programs designed specifically for UCI students that are led by UCI faculty and staff. There's currently a really small number of them that are offered through our departments, but we're hoping that this will grow in the future. So if you want to check out our website, be sure to check back on this. And normally these ones are courses, involve courses straight from the UCI catalog. So you'll know exactly what those courses are. We also have other UC programs. So these are offered by other UC campuses. They're led by UC faculty at another campus. So if you have another friend at another UC and you want to do a program together, this can be another good option. Maybe there's a professor doing really awesome research or something that's aligned with what you want to do at another university, this may be an opportunity to go abroad with them as well and get to know someone else in your field too. So once again, similar kinds of programs. The great thing about all three of those first program types that I mentioned is that you're going to get UC units for all of those programs that you're going to participate in. So you're going to get UC units, it counts towards your UC GPA. And students are eligible for financial aid on all of those programs, which is really awesome. The last program type are independent programs. So if you're not able to find a program that's offering, UC units or UC courses, we do have programs that are available for UCI students. And these are usually run by organizations such as they can be education abroad organizations that do focus on study abroad programs. They can also be programs that are direct enroll with another different university abroad. And sometimes even these are study abroad programs offered by a different college or university across the US. So we do have a list of independent programs that have already been pre-approved for financial aid. So there is a list of those on our website, but if you are interested in a program that's not on that pre-approved list, there is no financial aid available for that. So that's just one distinction that I really want to mention. The other difference here for independent programs is that those are going to be transfer units instead of UC units, so they won't count towards your GPA. So that's a general overview. The website's going to have a lot more details on those different program types. But the first thing, I guess the second thing after you've sort of reflected on what you want to do is thinking about making a plan. So we always encourage students to work with their academic counselor to figure out what kind of classes would be good for you to take abroad. So we have an academic planning worksheet for students to think about, their 4-year plan or 5-year plan or their transfer plan to figure out what courses you're taking when, if there's certain sequences. So we always want students to think about when is the best time for you to study abroad, thinking about it from a financial aspect. Maybe you're working on campus and this is something that's worth saving towards. When does it make sense academically? When does it make sense personally? Maybe you're on a sports team or you're going to be involved in a club or something like that. So we encourage you to have these conversations with your friends, families, academic counselors in order to determine when's the right time for you. We often get the question is, when's the best time to study abroad? I think historically there had been an answer that your junior year is when it makes sense. But since that myth became popular, there have been a huge explosion of different program types that are available for students. So we have things for incoming freshmen, we have things for graduating seniors, and everything in between. So the answer to when's the best time to study abroad is any time that works the best for you. So there's not necessarily a single time that you should be aiming for. So start those conversations early, try to make a plan. So really the earliest that you could go abroad would be spring quarter of your first year at UCI through another UC program. The latest that you could do that is your final quarter as a UCI student. Zoe, would you talk just a little bit about the academic aspect of your program and what types of courses you were taking and how you made that decision?
Sure. I was taking 2 really intensive classes on Renaissance art, and I chose to take these classes because there happened to be complete experts in the field at my university. So I was learning, for instance, about Leonardo da Vinci from the professor who is basically who all the museums reach out to when they're hosting any Leonardo da Vinci works or exhibitions. It was a really great experience, and I did end up being able to apply those classes for credits too. So I knocked out a few requirements in my major, and it also helped me to become a way stronger writer and researcher just because of how intensive the classes were. And I also began working on my thesis project for my senior year. So if any of you guys are in a program that requires you to do a big project at the end of the year, it really helped me to expand my my knowledge of my subject and start looking into different subject matter that I wasn't originally interested in.
Wonderful, thank you. So the next thing to think about is when to apply. I even saw something in the chat, right? So study abroad deadlines and the process to apply are going to vary by the program, the term that you want to go, and the location. So in general, students should be, let's see, application deadlines are usually 6 months to a year in advance. So this is, again, why we encourage students to plan early. We will be updating our deadlines page on our website, hopefully soon. Those should be available early to mid-October for the deadlines for the next academic year. Another great thing to keep in mind when you're applying for these programs is that most of these programs are not competitive. So if you meet the eligibility requirements, you submit your application by the deadline, you are most likely going to be accepted. So you're not necessarily competing on your GPA or recommendations or things like that. So that's one important thing to keep in mind. So as you're considering when you want to apply, but obviously the sooner that you apply, the better. We usually recommend that students get in touch with our office, start this process at least the year before they intend to study abroad. So that's a good starting point, but we always encourage students to start as early as possible. So I had the opportunity personally to study abroad the summer after my freshman year. And I realized how much more engaging it was, putting myself out of my comfort zone, meeting new people, exploring life in a new place. And that allowed me to pursue 3 other study abroad programs during my time at UC San Diego. So the earlier you start planning, the more options that there are available to you. So if you think about, if you're an incoming freshman, you have 4 years worth of coursework that you take generally to be able to graduate. But if you come and talk to the Study Abroad Center when you only have 1 year left, the number of courses that you have left is significantly smaller. So the sooner you come talk to us, the better, and we can help you plan through that experience and even potentially have the option to participate in more than one program if that's something that you're interested in doing. So hopefully some of this has been really exciting to you. Hopefully you're learning some new things and you want to learn more. So we have some steps that you can take to get started. So we always refer students to check out our website. We have a how to study abroad timeline document that you can see a screenshot of on the right-hand side. And that's going to go over, it's going to be a clickable timeline with more information on each one of those. The next thing that we're encouraging all students to do is to complete your UCI Abroad profile. And so this allows the Study Abroad Center to learn a little bit more about your preferences, your goals in terms of where you want to go, what kinds of classes you want to take, what are some of your concerns, how can we better support you. So once students complete that profile, we will be able to send individual customized updates for everything about, new programs that they may be interested in, upcoming info sessions for destinations they want to learn more about or majors they want to learn more about, upcoming events, deadlines, scholarships, different kinds of workshops for scholarships and different things like that. So creating your profile really gives us a lot of information in order to be able to support you better. All right, so there's a couple of ways also to connect with us. So you can also visit us on campus. So we are in the Student Services Building 2 in Suite 1100. So we're across Ring Road from the UCI bookstore. Our office is currently open Monday through Thursday from 11 to 3. We have virtual and in-person advising appointments available, so you can book those appointments online. We also offer some drop-in advising on Tuesdays from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. You can also connect with us on social media at UCI Abroad. So on our Instagram and YouTube. Instagram, we're going to be doing some takeovers. We'll have events and photos. We'll be doing Q&As, Feature Fridays. And then on YouTube, we have a lot of really great resources and have playlists for everything from getting started with study abroad that will go into a little bit more detail on maybe the academic piece, the financial piece. We have some study abroad returnee stories, so you can hear from past UCI students who have gone abroad. We have information about financial aid and scholarships. We have identity-based resources and more. So that's a really great place for students to get started in a little bit more exploration. We also want to highlight our upcoming events. So we have the UC Glow, which is our UC Global Learning Opportunities Week that I spelled wrong in here. I apologize, but that is going to take place October 19th through 21st. So this is a great opportunity for you to be able to dive a little bit deeper about the different programs that are available for you to study, intern, or research around the world, and even virtual opportunities. We're going to hear from study abroad returnees like Zoe. We're going to talk about academics, financial aid, scholarships, and next steps. So if you're interested, you can go to our events page on our website, or there's also a link here too. And I don't think I mentioned this in the beginning, but we will be sending out the slides to all students who registered for this, so you can access all of these clickable links. All right, so I think that concludes the formal presentation portion of this. Zoe, was there anything else that you wanted to share from your experience that you haven't had the opportunity to tell these students before we open it up for questions?
Sure, I definitely encourage everyone here to study abroad. It was an absolutely amazing experience to me, and I think it's a really unique experience too, because there's very few opportunities, I think, at this age, at this time in our lives, when we can go and actually live in a different country for a really long amount of time. It's definitely different from being a tourist because you're much more immersed and have an opportunity to really get to know your host country.
Wonderful. And then another thing I would love for you to touch on, because you're in a graduate program now. Can you talk about how your experience may have influenced, sort of your career and moving forward?
I think it definitely made me feel more confident about going for what I want to do. For instance, like just all of the things I learned during study abroad and learning really how to advocate for myself as well, both at the university when I needed to take certain classes and when I returned in terms of getting those classes applied and talking to my professors about the direction I wanted to take my research. That really made me much more confident as a scholar. And I think definitely, as you mentioned before, study abroad is really valued on graduate applications. So I think it did make me a very good candidate for my program, having that international experience.
Wonderful. All right, so I think we'll go ahead and we will open it up to questions. Zoe, were there any questions that you would like me to answer live, or you would like to answer live, that you think a lot of students may have on their mind too?
Sure. Well, one question we just got is, could you share these slides by email?
Yes.
Students here. I know we usually do that. So
yep, we'll share it with all the students who registered and logged in today. All right. Let's see. So there is, there is a question that says, what does studying abroad look like for junior transfer students, since our timelines and course schedules are usually a lot more compact? Is it something you'd recommend? Does the process or timeline usually look different? Do you want to take that one, Zoe?
Sorry, I just froze for a sec. Could you repeat the question?
Yeah, so it was the question about studying abroad as a junior transfer student, the timeline. Is it something we'd recommend?
I think it's definitely possible as a junior transfer. I would suggest looking into programs during your senior year. So for instance, senior year during the fall or senior year during the winter will probably be ideal. I think a lot of, excuse me, I think a lot of the programs at UCI are very supportive of getting that extra experience, because so many of the departments know that there's really unique academic opportunities that you can get from studying abroad, and it totally enriches your major.
Great. Let's see some other questions that students have. There is a good question. It says, to figure out when I will study abroad and what classes do I take? Do I talk to the study abroad center or academic counselor? So I always like to think of it as sort of a collaborative process, right? Your academic counselor knows your individual academic situation, your graduation requirements, and the study abroad center is able to connect you with the types of opportunities that may be aligned. So it really is sort of a joint effort, but it is something that that academic planning form is something that you're going to want to utilize and have conversations with your academic counselor. So you can talk about when you might want to go, when would be a good time. Are there certain sequences of classes that you don't want to interrupt, or can you take the entire sequence of a class like the physics series in a summer, those different kinds of things. So it's definitely a joint conversation. Zoe, do you have anything you want to add to that?
No, I don't think I have anything else to add.
Okay, great. Oh, there's another really good question. Said, are trips this year or next year impacted by COVID? That is a really, really great question. So at the Study Abroad Center, our number one goal is to be able to ensure that students have a safe and successful experience abroad. And obviously there's different parts of the world that are in different situations regarding COVID. And so there have been a number of programs. We do have about 140 students that are abroad for this fall term, which is really exciting. But there are a series of very strict guidelines and information that is collected and reviewed before a program is approved and students are allowed to travel. And that's going to be everything from what is the caseload, the ability of hospital beds, the access to ventilators, access to emergency care, everything. It runs the really wide range of things that they're considering when they're determining if it is going to be possible. So as of right now, I think sort of in October, we're going to be seeing the full on list of deadlines and programs that are available for the next academic cycle through UCEAP. There have been a couple of programs that, for example, students were planning to go on this spring that they had applied for last year that have unfortunately been canceled. What we have been trying to do with those students is to try to find an alternative program that still will allow students to achieve those same goals and same things, but in a potentially different location or a different term, depending on what the situation is looking like regarding COVID.
We had another question earlier that I didn't know the answer to. Are there any additional fees for international students who are studying abroad?
That is a really good question. And so that's something on every single one of those program pages, you're going to see what the program costs are. In general, if you're paying UC tuition, so through UCEAP or another UC, if you are already paying that out-of-state tuition, that will still apply when you are traveling abroad. So if you, for example, were to go on an independent program where you are not paying UC tuition, right? Because UC tuition depends on your residency status. Those programs, so independent programs, should have very similar fees or the same fees for international students versus domestic students. One thing to keep in mind as an international student, if you are a holder of a different kind of passport, there may be different visa fees, which are going to be in general a smaller portion than thinking about the tuition, but oftentimes the fee for a visa for one country is not going to be the same as for others. So that is something else to keep in mind as a non-US passport holder. All right, let's see. Other questions. It looked like there were some good questions coming in here. I
can answer this one from Chris. Okay. I understand that I need to meet with both the Study Abroad Center and my academic counselor, but who do you recommend I meet with first? So it can actually depend. I actually never met with my academic counselor to discuss study abroad until I was already like completely applied and ready to go. So I just went to the Study Abroad Center. It can really depend on your major and your program, but I personally think you should come see us first, just because our office is really nice. But also, I think at the Study Abroad Center, we can help you formulate a plan for what you need to ask your academic counselor and what resources you need from them. So we can just help you narrow down that information so you can have a productive appointment with your academic counselor.
Great. Perfect, Zoe. Thank you. let's see if there's other questions we haven't there. I saw a question about, are we open? Yes, we're open Monday through Thursday from 11 to 3. We do have drop-in advising on Tuesdays from 11 to 3 as well. We are just across the way from the Hill, so the bookstore too. Let's see. There's a question here specifically about credits. So is there a website to see credits that programs provide, or do we meet with an advisor? So do you want to take that one, or do you want me to take it?
I can take this one. So if you go to the UCEAP website, which is our main study abroad provider, they'll have information for each program under an academics tab that shows you the type of credits that you'll be offered. And also you can access information like an outline of the classes that they offer and classes that previous UC students have taken and then applied for credit themselves. So that's an example of one resource that's available, but there's also some more information on our website, and we can definitely walk you through that at an appointment.
Great. Looks like Zoe would be able to drop those websites. So you can drop our study abroad website and then the UCEAP website in there too. Let's see. It said there's another question that says, are there cases where you might be the only person from UCI attending a certain program? Is it harder to make friends that way? That's a really good question. I think there may be instances where you are the only person. For my junior abroad in Italy, I did an independent program and I was the only person from UCSD. And I actually think that it allowed me to make even more friends, because if I had people on the program that I already knew, that I was comfortable with, that came from the same university, I feel like it would have been a lot easier for me to stick within that friend group or that bubble. Whereas traveling by myself put me in a situation where I was excited to meet more people, wanted to put myself out there, wanted to make new connections and find people that I really have that deeper, stronger connection with. And so many of these I feel like are really instantaneous. You meet people, you immediately get along, you feel comfortable with each other. And so being in that situation and exploring new places, those are all really great ways to come together. I think through UCEAP, a lot of times there usually are more than one UC student participating in those programs. It's not very common that you'll be the only UC student, but it's really going to be program dependent if there's other UCI students on it during a specific term that you're going. Zoe, do you have anything else to add to that one or anything that you're thinking?
Sure. At my university, there were actually like very few other UC students, and I didn't see them for most of my program, but I got along really, really well with both my flatmates who were all from England and also other international students who were just from all over the world. So it's super easy to connect with people who are also like new to the country and from somewhere completely different in the world, because we share a lot of experiences of the same like type of anxiety and newness to the area. So I think it's a great social experience, even if you don't know a lot of other people from UCs.
And I think, personally, that experience made me even more sort of outgoing, comfortable talking to people that I didn't know. And it makes you, I think it makes you realize that people in general really like to help people. They like to connect people. You meet locals, like Zoe mentioned, who want to show you the best, most exciting things because they want you to enjoy the place like they do. And so it's a really, really special time to be able to sort of build some of those connections. And, I would say that I'm just as close to some of the people I studied abroad with, even though we were all from different universities and we don't see each other as often as I did with some of the people I was friends with on campus. So you build really, really strong relationships with them, and everybody's in the same boat. Everybody wants to usually meet everybody as well, similar to sort of the kind of experience you have at, welcome week, early getting to know clubs, putting yourself out there, getting to know other people. These are all really, really very thoughtful, great questions. So any other questions, anything that we have not addressed? If you do, I also want to say that if you do have other questions, things that come up later on, feel free to email us. We can drop our email address into the chat as well. It's just studyabroad@uci.edu. So you can send us an email. We can get you in contact with the right advisor. We can set you up with a virtual advising appointment or an in-person advising appointment, and we can answer a lot of your questions that way too.